Notable MLB insider Jeff Passan came out with an absolute bomb today. Now, he mentioned a few teams in the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes, as well as the Toronto Blue Jays. So we'll break down that and much more and give a couple of trade packages as well on this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Now, before we get into anything in this video, I want to give a huge shout out to Jay Jackson and Dalton Varsho for coming up huge in that Blue Jays victory yesterday. They're going for their second win in a row against the LA Dodgers tonight. I don't know about you, Nick. I know it's late. It's a little bit later over there in Newfoundland, but I love these West Coast games. And if the Jays can get on a roll here, it bodes well for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I made it all worth it. It was up to 3 a.m. watching that game, but they ultimately got the win. And that also kind of ties into our video today, which is, again, a trade deadline. News just keeps flowing out, and today was probably the first big piece of news regarding the Blue Jays from a major reporter regarding Shohei Ohtani. Before we get into it, make sure that subscribe button. We're on the road to 7,500. Your support has been unbelievable. Let's just get right into it. This dropped out today. It was in one of Jeff Passan's articles, and reading this, Peter, I had to read it twice to make sure I was, reading it properly. And it said, despite currently holding the final wildcard spot, Toronto hasn't done enough to convince ownership to open up the coffers, leaving the Blue Jays precisely where they've been all season, essentially the middle ground. That's, kind of a part we, expected here. But that said, when asked where Ohtani could wind up if he's moved, three of the most popular answers from executives are Baltimore, Tampa Bay, and the Toronto Blue Jays, although the Blue Jays are a longer shot due to the thinner farm system. Now, we kind of, threw Ohtani out there as just a potential, he almost signed with not almost signed, but he was, rumored around the Blue Jays before he signed with the Angels. This is very, very interesting. What are your initial thoughts on it? It's a bit crazy. Do I think it's likely? Maybe not, but it's fun to be, named from a notable reporter, probably one of the, if not the most notable reporter in Jeff Passan.
Yeah, I don't agree with the first part of that statement from Jeff Passan. Now, Ross Atkins the other day said that he needs to make this team better at all costs, and that includes giving up big-time prospects for rentals, whether it's Ohtani, whether it's someone else. Now, you got to make this team better. They've shown that they can be a very good team, but they're still a ways away from those elite teams like the Atlanta Braves, maybe not the Dodgers, but you know what I mean, like those championship contending teams. They're not quite there yet, whether it's a minor addition, whether it's someone, one of the bigger fish on the market remains to be seen, but the Jays need to do something. They can't just stand pat. And if they're not convinced that this team is good enough, then you got to make additions. You can't just pray to get into the playoffs and then be a middle of the road team once you're in there. You got to go for it at some point. And I think this is the season where the Jays should go ahead and do that. But when it comes to the Ohtani sweepstakes, I'm very hesitant to put them in that. Although they have been mentioned, and it's nice to see that as a Jays fan. I think the Orioles and the Rays are way ahead of them. And I actually mentioned it on the radio the other day that I think the Orioles and the Rays are in perfect position to make a trade for him, and they instantly become the favorites in the American League. And I could see them becoming World Series favorites as well, because the Orioles are a power hitter and a pitcher away. And you could say the same thing for the Rays, and they have a loaded farm system that goes for both teams.
Yeah, and if the Orioles, or the Rays for that matter, but especially the Orioles, want to outbid the Blue Jays for Ohtani, if the Angels want mainly prospects, even young players, they could outbid the Blue Jays. The question is kind of what it would take, because the Jays do have some really good young players. You're talking about Bo Bichette, Vladdy, players like that, but I don't think they'd want to give them up. And you kind of made a good point there, and the Jays want to swing for the fences, and this came out yesterday. We didn't, get to include it in our video, but this is from Shai Davidi saying, there's a part of me that wonders if maybe they try to do something maybe more significant than what we're talking about. And this was obviously yesterday before this Ohtani thing dropped. Now, are they related? Who knows? But it relates to the first point as well, where I think the Blue Jays make a fairly significant move. And again, significant in this trade deadline is a bit different than the other trade deadlines because there's not too many crazy players. Unless Shohei Ohtani gets available, then he'll probably be the best possible asset in the past 10 years or maybe of all time even. But I don't know. I agree with you. I think the Jays aren't in the best spot to maybe go for Ohtani. However, maybe they go for him in free agency. Who knows?
Yeah, they should definitely do their due diligence on that front. But another reason as to why they would maybe try to overpay for him at this year's deadline is just so the Orioles and the Rays don't get him. That this could have a
And vice
huge
versa,
impact.
though. And vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. But are the Orioles going to be willing to part ways with Jackson Holiday, with Colton Cowser? Probably not. Probably not, just because they've had a tough time. They've had a tough time attracting free agent talent, and they have a couple of homegrown superstars in their ballpark right now in Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman. You want to surround them with talent, but you also want to be able to re-sign them once their arbitration years are over. So I think the Orioles would be hesitant to give up as big of a haul as the Angels would be commanding, and same thing with the Rays, because you can guarantee that they will not be dishing out 550, $600 million for Shohei Ohtani. You could say the same for probably 28 other major league teams, but definitely not the Rays. So it would make sense in terms of a rental, and it probably puts those teams over the top. But they haven't really been the type of franchises to just go all in and put all their chips in the middle of the table. The Jays, though, they have done that in the past, maybe not with this front office that they have right now, but it is something that's possible, and the Jays do have the assets to get it done, especially because you're only getting them for 2 months.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Is that the Jays have shown willingness to go all in. It's kind of a matter of, I mean, the Rays wouldn't extend him, you wouldn't think, and then the Orioles, who knows? They have lots of guys to extend in the future as well, like the Blue Jays do. But let's get into a couple trade packages here that you made up, Peter. And we're going to touch on the Blue Jays last here in a second. But this one is Bradley and Caminero for Shohei Ohtani. Just a quick tidbit. You made up these trades, and what are your thoughts on this trade here?
It's a lot to give up for the Tampa Bay Rays, but like I said, it's something that puts you over the top. They've had a lot of injuries in their starting rotation. Junior Caminero is a top 15 prospect in all of baseball, and it's a big haul. It's definitely a big haul. You'll probably have to give up some money as well on your current major league roster. But why would you not do it if you're the Tampa Bay Rays? You know, you could get over the top and get your franchise their first World Series here.
I completely agree. And again, will the Angels command more of the market for Shohei Ohtani? You'd expect it would be big, but again, you have to understand that it's a rental at this point. If he had a term left on his contract, it'd be probably the biggest haul in MLB history. But touching on the Angels now with the Orioles, this would be, of course, Cowser and Rodriguez for Shohei Ohtani. And again, we don't really know what the market is for Shohei Ohtani. This could be underpaying, this could be overpaying. Who knows? At the end of the day, only the executives know here. But Peter, quick thoughts on this one, and then I'll give you my potential Blue Jays offer.
Nice. I'm excited to hear that one. But Colton Cowser, pretty good prospect, and Grayson Rodriguez,
Sure.
electric stuff. Had a cup of coffee in the major leagues this year, and this could probably get it done. Although I'd have to believe that Jackson Holiday would need to be involved in the deal for it to get done on the Angels side of things. But Shohei Ohtani, no matter who you get back for him, you're never going to get equal value. Now, whether it's 2 months of Ohtani and 6 years of Holiday, probably that makes up for it in a sense, but you'll never get back a player as good as Shohei Ohtani in the deal. So that's something that you got to keep in mind if you are the Angels front office, but they're in such a tough spot right now, but it's partly on them because they haven't been able to surround him with talent, and now he's going to walk for nothing if they can't trade him in the next week.
Yeah, and again, these are probably on the more conservative side because usually when trades like this go down, aside from a couple, it's usually a bit more of an underwhelming package than one you would expect, especially with a rental. But throwing the Blue Jays one now, I don't have a screenshot for it, but me and Peter discussed it a little bit. Is it realistic? Probably not, and I'll show you a screenshot here in a second regarding that Ben Nicholson Smith tweeted. But it's going to take someone realistically, like Peter, I don't know what thoughts you have on it. Ricky Tiedemann, Brendan Barriera, or Relvis Martinez. I'd assume that would be the starting point. And again, we don't really have that blue chip prospect that the Orioles and I guess the Rays have. We don't really have that blue chip prospect, so it would take a bit more collectively, but we do have a competitive package if they wanted to get it done. It just is a matter of if the Orioles or Rays would want to outbid us or how highly other teams, or the Angels specifically, value our other prospects, because sometimes it's not the same as what fans may value them.
Right now, the thing we got to remember with the Blue Jays, it would probably have to be a package centered around quantity over
Yeah.
quality, and you're probably giving them three top 100 prospects as opposed to two top 50 prospects,
Yeah.
like the other teams would be able to put together. But if I'm the Jays and if this opportunity presents itself, I still think it'd have to be a bit of a bigger package to get it done. But if the opportunity did present itself with Ricky Tiedemann, Brandon Barriera, and Aroldis Martinez, doing it in a heartbeat. And this is the time for them to go all in. George Springer's not getting any younger. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette are getting closer and closer to free agency. So you don't know. You got to go ahead and pull the trigger when the deal presents itself. And if it happens, then I'd be elated.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And a quick thing, if you made it this far, is Ben Nicholson Smith tweeted, a couple minutes after this report dropped, and he said, "Would love to be wrong here, but A, Shohei Ohtani is already on a contender, and B, he doesn't really expect the Blue Jays to land him." And one executive said it makes, quote, "no sense." But of course, the Jays will do their due diligence there, and we all kind of knew that. But let us have some fun and discuss it. But it is a chance where one of three teams linked. Are we the most likely? Probably not. However, where there's smoke, there's fire. Maybe the Blue Jays go out and maybe not Shohei Ohtani, but maybe, like Shadavidi said, a bigger move than some of us thought. But that'll wrap up the video. We'll keep you guys updated with all the trade deadline news as it approaches around 1 week away. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully the Jays win tonight.